Does that sound all right with everybody? Thumbs up for those people that are there. I like to see faces. I spend too much time on my own in this office, as we were just talking about. So the purpose of the talk is to talk about the work that I've been doing over the last 20 years, inclusive of performance and creation of works with a focus on site-specific performance. Just a bit of background on me, just to give you a little bit of context. I came to dance quite late after sort of completing school exams, my GCSEs and A-levels, as they're called here. I'd always been interested in dance and movement. I didn't really dance properly. I went to a local sort of dance school until I was kind of 18. I was very interested in theatre. I auditioned for lots of theatre schools, and only kind of one dance course, which I sort of did as a bit of fun, really. How did I know that I was going to change my life? So I auditioned for a foundation course in dance. So foundation is kind of it was a 2-year course learning the principles of dance technique, covering ballet, contemporary, jazz, improvisation, choreography, and that was based at Swindon Dance, which is one of what was the national dance agencies in the UK. And also Swindon is a new town, and I live in Milton Keynes, which is a new town. So I was quite attracted to that place because it wasn't a city. I wanted to go somewhere where I could have a lot of focus. So as someone interested initially, I mean, I love to move, but I was very interested in theatre. I auditioned for lots of theatre schools, but I was told to go away for, to get some experience, some life experience. So I happened across this course in Swindon and decided through a successful audition to go there. So I had 2 years of really great training on this course. And as someone interested in theatre as well, this course offered the opportunities to get the techniques in dance, but alongside interaction with touring dance companies and collaborations with theatre directors. And there was a director that came to make work with us called Felix Cross. And what I'll do is I'll share some links with you as probably at the end of the talk, so you can sort of have a look at the people that sort of maybe affected me as I was training. But he gave me a real insight how I might collaborate dance and theatre. And I had some other great teachers around who had a wealth of experience in ballet, contemporary jazz, choreography and improvisation and performance. So even though I was young and naive and the world of dance was new to me, the teachers never patronized my lack of knowledge, but encouraged my total energy and enthusiasm to learn. And that was a great start for me. So I thought, right, 2 years, what's next? So I then went on to the Northern School of Contemporary Dance in Leeds for a further 3 years. And again, I'll share that link so you can sort of see what that place is about. Yeah, so I think I decided to go into dance following my A-levels. I had this love of history and archaeology, and it was a close call whether I was going to go in to do that instead, as a degree course, and that would have changed my life completely. But I decided to do the dance thing first whilst I was young. But it's kind of interesting how my love of history has actually influenced quite a lot of the sighted work that I've made or been involved with, or the companies that I've worked with as I've been, working within the profession. It's all actually interlinked. So after 5 years of training, I came back to Swindon and joined a professional called Dance Connect, which was a arts and education project, which took work into schools across the Southwest and also quite a rich workshop program. And this year was a real moment for me in terms of learning how to access dance to people and overcome any hurdles in participation. So again, just thinking back about the work that I've since created, all of that has struck some relevancy of how to make work that actually connects with people, and how to make work within sites that has meaning for people. so that they have a relationship with the work. So it set my foundations, and the understanding that everybody has the ability to dance and participate and appreciate it, and that we can create something for everybody. Alongside that, I also had the opportunities to work with a number of choreographers that really opened my eyes. So, and I'll share these links later. So I worked with Jonathan Lund, Scott Ambler, Banksy, who was a hip hop artist. So I got down to my hip hop roots as well. And Yael Flexer, who's the other half of Flex from Sunderland, who I've since worked with again throughout my sort of career in various different roles. So I had a great year of performance experience, teaching experience, and it was a teaching experience which was like gold dust, because again, that has really enforced this kind of approach of how to, approach dance with all abilities, with all ages. One project that I did there was with a group of boys who weren't in full-time education, that weren't allowed to kind of come to school and participate in normal classes, either through behavioural issues or personal issues. So I created work with this group of boys who were very interested in breakdance. And that then started a sort of collaboration with some hip hop artists, some musicians. We created an original hip hop text piece to open their work. But it also showed me some challenges, because these boys didn't want to do what they thought was, dancing, like proper dancing. They wanted to do their own thing. So it was a real experience for me to break down those barriers, and how do I get these boys on board? And it was just through the sheer passion and dynamic and energy of the work that I managed to get them on my side, and also listening to them, listening to their ideas, not going in and being like, right, I want to create this is what we're going to do, and that's just the way it's going to be. It was much more a conversation, really got to know them as young individuals. And of course, then we created some work which then brought the house down, because their energy was electrifying, and they had such an amazing experience with this hip hop artist. So, I left that contract on a high. It was a year contract, and lots of things to sort of deliberate in my mind and reflect upon. And I thought, well, I'm going to spend a year of kind of freelancing and seeing like where I need to fit in within this industry. Like, where do I fit as an artist? And I did some work for Bucks Dance, which was a dance organisation here near where I live, and created a number of youth companies across the county. And those youth companies came together to create work, to open buildings or to open exhibitions. So we created work to take to various organisations and to give them as much performance experience as possible. And at the same time, what I didn't realise was that I was creating work already for different spaces and different audiences. I also worked for Cirque Bijou, which is a circus company, as a dancer, but again, that gave me some insight into a different world, a more corporate world, a less contemporary dance world, but kind of very accessible. And I was going to say the word glitzy, but I think you know what I mean. It was very, very different to what I'd done in small scale venues, so on a much bigger scale. And I worked for a company in Oxford called Berserk Dance Company. So I was very much sort of involved in working out where I sat within the industry. And then I saw an audition for Motion House, which is a company based here in the UK. It was back then, so I'm talking about in 2000, 1999 to 2000, was a company that really focused on dance theatre, improvisation and contact work and contact improvisation. And I auditioned for them. I was lucky enough, after about 9 hours of auditioning and being absolutely shattered by the end of the audition, to be part of their company for another 6 years. And with the company, I toured a number of works. Interestingly, the company, when I joined them, had a huge reduction in funding, and so had to reimagine their work in terms of where they were touring to, spaces that they could make their work. And so they decided to take on a different approach to making work. So they created their own sets, which would then tour. So they were very sort of self-contained. So they could take these sets anywhere. They could take them to theatres, they could take them to schools, take them to shopping centres. And although that work now, particularly in the UK, is quite common, back then it wasn't common at all. You saw work in a theatre. You might see some work in schools or art centres, but you certainly wouldn't happen across it in a shopping centre. So we would take these large sets and create our work there. The amount of shows that we did gave me huge, experience. We didn't just do 6 or 7 shows of something. We did 100 shows of a production. So it allowed us to really get into the meat of what we were doing and allow the work to develop. And again, that taught me a lot about resilience, about how to perform something that many times and still find life in it. And also taught me a lot about my own physicality and how to maintain that level of fitness in order to do that work. Also, at the same time, the company were very interested in sighted works. And we did a number of, it was my first real experience of being involved in that kind of work. I hadn't done site-specific performances before. And we worked in a number of English heritage sites. So English heritage are these kind of homes or castles that are kind of maintained and open to the public. So we created a work in Whitley Court, which is in Worcestershire, called Dreams and Ruin. Now this is going back a while, so I have got some video footage to share with you, but it might look a little bit grainy because we didn't have the high definition then. But I thought I would share this work. Let me see if I've got it on here a second. Right, no, I'll just, let's have a look. So if I share my screen, all right. So can you see my screen now? Can you see? Good. Okay. Oh, it might be buffering. 2 seconds. Let me take it back. Great. So,
could you tell me some of your dating deal breakers and why?
I always say if a girl ever spits.
Oh,
I don't think it was like that. No.
Gosh, things are kind of going off all over the place. Sorry about that. So did that kind of buffer okay, your end? It did. Excellent, excellent. So we worked with a number of schools to bring that site to life. So as you notice, we added something to the site there. So we didn't just use the site itself, but we added. So what was interesting about that site was, in its glory, it did a number of things. You know, it was full of guests, it was full of parties. So we wanted to bring that space to life socially as it was, to almost restore the site to its original kind of original use. Are there any questions at this moment? Just because I'm realizing that I'm talking quite a lot as we go. Anybody got anything they want to ask?
Yeah, I have a question. May I?
Yeah, absolutely.
You said that you added this red table, as far as I understand.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was done so just to make it the site more adjustable. I mean, to make it better for your choreography, or what was the goal of this?
It was because they, in the kind of history that we looked at, they used to hold these great balls and feasts within the hall. Now the hall was no longer there because it was a ruin that we were working in. So we decided to sort of bring that big dining table, that idea of feasting together, back to life. There was another section earlier on that we kind of brought all the waiters and the waitress, you know, the waiters of the servants, I guess, of the hierarchy. We brought scenes to life with them bringing food and celebration. So it was all kind of related to the people that worked there, the communities that engaged with the site, the people that lived there. So we added to the site to sort of bring it back to its sort of former glory.
Okay, and this, how is it in English? I mean, where the water was, I forgot how it is.
The lake.
Yeah, the lake. It was just rather as landscape for you, or did you interact somehow with it?
So I don't know whether you noticed, but around the back of the lake, there were a number of dresses that were stood up. I don't know whether you noticed, there was lots of different colours. So there was sections, so they were around the back, so it was kind of landscaped. And then we would bring those dresses, put those, they kind of clipped on. There was a whole section which was actually done in an aerial vision through the windows of the ruin. So we had some scaffolding actually put up at the back of the building, and all the dancers were harnessed, and they had long pieces of cloth which they sort of draped down. It was a bit like, you know, the fairy tale Rapunzel. Yeah, so we would drape these cloths down and kind of welcome people into the building. So again, there was these, it was very, very like using images within the site. So again, that feasting table was a very strong image. The images of women in windows with the cloth hanging down the building, again, brought colour to the site. So we kind of added to it to bring the history alive as well.
Okay, and to the last question, what the site was, because I missed it somehow in the beginning.
It's Whitley Court in Worcestershire, in a place called Worcestershire. So and it's interesting again because, I mean, I'll come on to it in a little while, but I worked with them again to create a different sighted work, but this time as a director. So yeah, I think what was lovely about this performance was there were a number of professional cast, but there was also a number of schools that brought that site to life. And as I said, there was a real focus on imagery within the work. This work then continued. We created a number of sighted works. I created some work in a small abbey. We made some work in what was called a big house, which was an old church that was based in Leamington Spa. And we also on a huge beach in Cornwall called Watergate Bay, where again we worked with the community to bring them to the beach. So Cornwall is an area that's very popular in the UK for holidays because it's got so much access to the beach and water. But what we found out through our research was there's so many young people that had never been to the beach, which for us felt crazy. because I guess it's that thing, isn't it? When something is there, sometimes you don't use it, or you see it in a very particular way. And so our job was to get people to view things differently. So it was to bring people to the beach, to actively participate within the environment of the beach and get their ideas about why they might visit it, how they might interact, what things happen there, what social interactions happen. So it was a very interesting site to work at. It's a tidal beach. So, you know, working with over 100 young people on a tidal beach was quite challenging, I would say, especially with the weather. But it was an amazing, so, you know, it was an amazing experience, both socially and as a site. We use surfboards and all sorts of different things like that. So these were my first real experience of sighted works, and the stage became a different world. So whatever we created within that site, we were hoping to have these transformative experiences where we'd take our audience somewhere else. So I spent 6 years in Motion House creating works, and we created works in prison as well. We worked in a high security male prison, HMP Dovegate, to create work with the male prisoners there. And we also performed work there. So I was getting all these experiences of these different places that I never thought about as performance spaces, if that makes sense. I never thought I would perform in a prison, but you know, they were all informing me about what was possible, or how these situations made me feel, or what could be done in those spaces. So after 6 years, I then moved to Norway and worked for a company called Parlor Dance Theatre. And I toured across Norway, performing work that was made by Jamie Watton and Anna Eknes. Again, I'll pop the link in the chat later. The reason I went there, it was a program called Cultural Rucksack. It's a Norwegian government initiative that every young person gets to experience art of whatever types. That could be opera, that could be music. Obviously, we were in a dance company. So we presented work across hundreds of schools across Norway over sort of 18 months, and gave people the opportunity to sort of participate. But part of that project was we had a partnership with Muda Africa, and we initiated this project through Pantaray to again access people to dance. And I'm just going to share a little clip again, just to I'll just show you the first bit. And this first stage of the process was in 2011, which was right at the beginning of the project. So let me go into this video and hopefully go. Let me share the screen. Okay. So hopefully you can see this now. And
The project in Tanzania was initiated in 2011, and it's still going strong. And it's a collaboration between Muda Africa and the Norwegian Performing Arts Hub in Norway that has us as the main collaborator to make sure the content of the project is as good as it can be in collaboration with the Tanzanians. The aim is to create a training program in Tanzania and potentially having it as an East African hub of dance, of contemporary dance.
So we set up a dance school to train the urban youth of Dar es Salaam. And the idea came about because we used to have a dance festival, a contemporary dance festival. We started in 2008, and every year we used to bring in trainers for a month They used to make pieces and we used to show it to the public. And then afterwards there's a void. And then we did this a second year, and we noticed that the level of the dancers never got any higher because in between there was no training for them. So then the idea of a school came about, and we now give daily dance lessons. And it's not just about dance technique, it's also about what we call self-management. So we teach them how to do write a CV, take photographs, videos of their work, so put together like a portfolio. And the idea is to give them all the skills they need to increase their chances of entering the cultural job market.
I'm going to stop showing there. It's just really to show you that we set up a stage, a kind of a training area, which was right in the heart of the community. So in a sense, you know, it wasn't a site-specific performance, but it was sited within the community. And that had a huge effect in terms of its impact, interest, community engagement. So again, all very, very relevant to sighted work and the work that I was then going to sort of move on to. Now I've got too many screens open. So I don't know whether there's any questions about that, but do let me know, just pipe up if anyone's got any questions.
That's funny that I saw two dancers that I've seen this year already at two festivals.
Really?
Yeah, they created a company and they perform as a duet, and I saw them this year in Latvia and somewhere else in France, I think. And they are very clever guy. It was so funny to see them there. Thank you.
Yeah. But I think that's always this happens to me all the time when, you know, the pathways cross all the time, and you it's such a small world. It's such a small world in that sense. So after coming back from a brilliant experience in Norway, we went to India and created work out there as well. A very random experience. The Crown Prince of Norway was doing a state visit to India, and we went over there to do a performance for his opening, which was, again, you know, for a young performer, that was just, it kind of blew my mind. I had live tabla drummers and all sorts of things like that. So again, just an amazing experience. But I came back to the UK and kind of resurrected my links with Dance Fest, which was the organisation that looked after the Whitley Court, you know, the big red table performance. They were the organisation that hosted that work, and they put out a call out for a choreographer, creative director, to create a work in another English heritage site called Goodrich Castle. So I applied for that, and again, it's steeped in history. So thinking about my roots back to my school days, my interest in all of that. So I applied for it and I managed to get the work. And it was very important to that project to be interactive with the local community. So we worked with over 100 people of all different ages. We engaged some horses within the work and some aerial work, singers. And we really worked with English Heritage to bring that site to life. So every young person that was involved in the performance had a site visit with a guide that would tell them about the history of the work. And that was all before the rehearsal started. So on day one of rehearsals, they already knew something about the site. So we could ask them questions about what they were interested in. So that would really be our starting points. I thought I'd share a little video about this as well. I'm just keeping my eye on time. Let me see, where has it gone? I've got too many windows open now, for sure. Let's just have a little look. It's not in that one. Okay, that's strange. It's disappeared. Oh, I had them all set up and now they've all disappeared. Ding, ding, ding. Right, bear with me. Okay, so it might have some buffering issues, but we'll have a look. Load up for. Let me share. So can you see? You should be able to see my screen in a second. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen? Yeah?
Yeah.
Great stuff. Sorry, I'm looking at my screen rather than.
The plot Forbidden is based around a true story, and it's based around the Civil War. You have the parliamentarians and the royalists. You have Charles Clifford and Alice Birch, who are kind of like your Romeo and Juliet of the Civil War. And they escape to Goodricke Castle on horseback to escape their feuding families. So this is kind of what I've based the whole show around. And yeah, so we're kind of exploring that the story of love and war and tragedy, really. I chose that particular story because I think people relate to that story, and then we try and just kind of layer it as well. So it's got a familiarity with all of its audience, and I think it's a kind of an attractive topic to use in that castle because the castle is so dramatic and it really suits the story. Well, we've actually been working on the project since mid-May, which is kind of 8 weeks now. It's been an interesting journey because I've been there throughout the whole period, seeing work through, and I think it's just trying to bring out different aspects of the story with each group, not trying to do the whole story with each group, but just each group having a particular almost character within the story. So we've got the royalists, we've got the parliamentarians, we've got this kind of evil force, we've got the kind of allies of Romeo and Juliet. So there's all these different elements, and basically just trying to select which schools, which places are going to do these different aspects of the story. And it's been great just kind of making it quite episodic like that, and people then really feel like they own a section of the work rather than just kind of flit in and out of the sections. Just kind of, yeah, it's a bit like, you know, like it just does that. Yeah, so it's a bit more cool. Okay. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1 and 2, 3, 4. Need noise, guys. Yeah. Yeah? It's a cool noise. You don't need to make much noise because you're so cool. Okay? Alright, here we go. These are the noisy bunch. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Louder. Yeah? Here we go. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1 and 2, 3, 4. 7, 8. 1 and 2, 3, 4. 5 and 6, 7, 8. 6, 7, 4, 8. Yeah. Just, yeah, on that one, do a huh. Yeah, it's on 5 and 6. Yeah. Lower, here. Yeah? Okay, here we go. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1 and 2, 3, 4. 5 and 6, 7, 8. 2 and 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Yeah, on that one. 5 Beast was quite interesting to choreograph. I really wanted to create a really a sort of mystical, kind of a little bit Lord of the Ringsy type feel. And then you start walking, and then slowly kind of like start taking on like little character. Yeah, like that thing out 28 days later. But we don't have the budget like Lord of the Rings, so we have to go somewhere else with it. So we're all a bit silent at the moment, so you can build your sound up. And you've got a very specific sound to your character. So you want to make it yours and not kind of like a hybrid of everybody else's. Sorry, I was really mean. How would those characters move? How would they communicate with each other? Would they talk or would they make noises? And what kind of noises would they make? And how would they listen to one another? How would they eat? Let's go from the ching of the glasses. Ready and boom. Good. Go down, but up, go. Yeah. You stand as well. So, okay. So when they go down this way, you guys go. You just go across to look at Vanessa this way to make you sit down. Has to be at the same time. Yeah. Okay. Or let's try two versions. Let's try at the same time and then just after, just a canon. Stu, you're like a moaner. Like, you know, when Chris had you and you're like,
it was eating my foot.
So really start to bring out those little, intricacies, because that's what makes it nice, So we did all these kind of tasks, and slowly people started to build up their own character, which was really nice. And then I directed a series of movements which were quite disjointed, because I don't think these characters particularly move in a flowing manner. So I gave them instructions and they had to instinctively go with those instructions without too much thought, and then we would piece it together.
It involves very many children also.
Yeah.
It,
2 horses.
We are so many people here, and 2 horses as well. So it's quite many people around the castle. That's nice.
And how many times do you do a dance project in a ruined castle? So, I mean, it's pretty unique really, isn't it? It's such a specific job.
Yeah.
That was great, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, the environment is the biggest significant, most significant different factor than a normal project. Yeah, being outside and being in ruins and changing your space every day. You don't really. Did anyone get bored of the castle?
No.
No, I didn't. Even on our day off, Si and I went to listen to the audio tour. Yeah, the history of the place, because we like it so much. Yeah.
I think the scale of it's different as well, isn't it? And you don't realise that until the start of this week, when you have the horses here and you have all the kids and
so many kids,
all the people, then all the tech crew and all, everyone involved. It's like, okay, it's a big deal, and that.
No, and also backed by the workshop people for costumes. I think they're brilliant actually. What they've done for sets and flags and costumes. Kate and the
Worcester Arts Workshop.
Give them a plug, Worcester Arts Workshop.
I've been really lucky that one of my other,
you know, I'm really lucky that obviously I work for Dance Fest and that it's brilliant CPD for myself and also the other dancers. We can take what Helen's taught us, just ways in which she teaches, or ways in which we create movement choreographically and also visually. She has this really great way of creating a really theatrical movement, and it's really great to be able to use that and put it into our own teaching, and then add our own stamp onto it. So
I think for me as well, it's given me a lot of confidence, like dancing with people that I don't know and meeting new people, and just like exploring different movement vocabulary as well to what I'm used to, and again breaking away from teaching and then having a performance experience and taking that back to when I do go back to teach and sharing it with the kids that I teach.
Well, the problem is with site specifics is the weather, and we never know. But I'm a great believer in trying to use the time positively. So we either find a space within the castle which is covered overhead, so we can sing, we can do the singing work or the character work, or we speak very nicely to a local school or community centre who quite often lend us their premises so that we can carry on, which is great for the project because it really feels like we're being supported in the community, which is brilliant. Keep the kids motivated is quite difficult, but we play games. I try and up the energy. I do a big warm-up where we use voice work. We use a lot of kind of making lots of stompy kind of noises to really get them engaged again, to bring them back in. So keeping it exciting all the time is really important.
So if I say I, you say I. Brilliant.
I believe my practice is very much that everyone can offer something, so I never think about segregating people due to level or experience. Sometimes it's very nice to work with people really across the board because we feed each other, and we can feed each other at any level creatively, and I think we can all still learn off each other in that way. There's some lovely sections with some really young members of the group, which every time I watch them, I love those sections, and I think I can see everybody else watching them and being inspired by them because it has that rawness, it's got an energy which is great, however much dance you've done. The finished product is, I'm really pleased with it. I'm really pleased with how people have pulled together. Every member of that cast knows when they're coming in, they know their timing, they work together as a mini company. We've got all different ages working together, all different abilities working together, and they're all really pulling their weight during the show, and it's not an easy site to work in, and they're all really coping amazingly well. So I'm really pleased with the outcome. I think it's got different energies, it's got different elements. We've got singing, we've got horses, we've got aerial work, and we've got some great dance choreography in there as well. So I'm just really pleased with how it's come out.
So there we are. That was back in 2007, 8. So I think that if I was going to go and do that work again, I'd actually do it quite differently. It's interesting, you sort of look back on things. It was a very difficult site. So lots of uneven surfaces, lots of very small spaces where you couldn't actually fit an audience in. Or if we were going to fit an audience in, because that actually gave a more intense experience, how would we manage that? The aerial work that you saw that was from the portcullis, we couldn't touch the original building in any of the infrastructure around that. So we had to get a proper rigging and that didn't touch the original site. So that was a challenge. So it brought huge challenges, but it taught me a lot about work. And so the sort of integration of professionals and quite young kids actually in that performance. Are there any questions about that? I'm just keeping my eye on time about the work or how I approached it or anything. No?
I have some general questions, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, sorry for so many questions. I'm interested in these, in such specific performances especially. And my question is, this performance and the previous one, correct me if I'm wrong, are rather aimed at emphasizing of the history or of the possibilities of the site. Have you ever made any performance that was about re-evaluating the site? I mean that
sorry, I missed that. Just about re-evaluating.
Yeah, I mean when the site was something and the way how you present it in your work, it's something maybe opposite or totally different.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, totally. So I created a work called Close Distance, which was a touring full production, so a stage piece. And then we were given the site of a dilapidated nightclub. So it's two totally different things that sort of had to come together within a sited context. So in that way, I didn't really use the club context. It was just about how we created the movement within that site. So it was less about the history of it, but just how we managed the audience and the content within that work. Or there's been work that have been given spaces, and I was going to share some work actually, collaboration with Oxford Brookes University, where we were doing a science experiment about the length of people's gait. And when I mean gait, it's their step stride, how we walk, and from that gait measurement, we can judge how well the person is, either mentally, physically, or how confident that person is. And then we put that into a site. So again, it's there's cited work, which I would say really comes from the site and its history and its background, or there's work that you put in a site and you adjust the work to the site, if that makes sense. Or you see work and you think, well, actually, I'm not going to go for the obvious here, like you're saying, working in opposition with the spaces that you're presented with. Does that answer your question?
Yes, in some way. Thank you.
There's lots to sort of eke out within that, I think. So I think it's all site dependent. You see a site and then you have a certain reaction to it, and it's whether you go with that reaction or you go in opposition. It's very complex. It's very complex.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions at this stage? No. Okay. We'll just go back in. So hopefully that was, interesting in terms of just viewing an early sighted work that that I directed. So there were over 100 people involved from the community, could say horses, aerial work, singers, and it was really to get people engaged in that site, because visitor numbers were dropping. They wanted to re-engage the community. So there's different reasons for performances as well. There's different approaches to why you're creating something. So it kind of relates to your question just a second ago about site. Then when I came back to Milton Keynes, I started collaborating with a company called Fringe MK, and they wanted me to create some work around illustrating characters and traits of tarot cards, stages of life and personality. So the site there was the shopping centre in Milton Keynes, which later on in my career with Motus, particularly the charity that I direct, that's where we site our work. So I was asked to create something very much in the not necessarily cited, but cited in a way of considering audiences. And I had this interest in, public performances, kind of based on my work with Motion House as well. I'm doing work in shopping centres. So this this is very kind of different. I'm gonna share the screen in a second, just to have a little look. Hopefully this will buffer okay. Let me just give 2 seconds. Go back. Make that big. Actually, take it back because I can't. Here we go. Right, so let me share the screen here. So you should be able to see this. You can see the site here. It's a very it's an open space. I didn't want them to put any barriers up. I really hated the barriers because I didn't want any barriers to the performance at all. And I didn't want any announcements about the work. So the work started, I don't know whether you can see, there's a chap in the middle of the floor with a high vis vest on. He was just a kind of cleaner cleaning the work. And then the idea was that it would just begin. But the shopping centre were quite nervous about that. So they insisted on these barriers being put up, which for me wasn't helpful in terms of a sighted work. But I'll just share a short section of it. Let's have like 2 minutes. Okay. I'm just gonna pause it there because I think that gives you an idea of the work. It kind of went from solos to group pieces to duets, quartets, and it lasted about 20 minutes. And interestingly, the audience build-up was, huge, which was great to see, sort of for contemporary dance and for it being accessible. Yes, so then just moving on to some, I know we're kind of running quite close on time. How are we doing for time, Pip? I'm all right to continue for a bit.
Yeah, I think if everybody's happy for a few more minutes, it's 12 minutes past, yeah.
So there were some sites in Milton Keynes. Oh, sorry, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I have one more small question. And if I got an audience wasn't prepared that anything started, and my question is, when the dancers started to perform, then this area, it was somehow freed naturally, or?
I kind of work with the performers to on a skill of how to create their own space. So I don't know whether you've ever seen any break dancers that create a b-boy circle. When they create, everyone naturally moves back because they start to own the space. I mean, the centre, like I said before, the shopping centre actually put out barriers, which I would never want, because I feel that, stops that sort of interaction. But naturally, the audience does move back, and I got the dancer to sort of map out the space. The guy at the beginning with the cleaning stuff, he mapped it out, so he created space. I mean, it's always a bit risky. I've been involved in performances myself as a performer, where I've been doing something and it's in a public space, and literally somebody with a walker comes through the middle of the space, or with children, they'll just walk through as to say this is, they want to own the space because it's public space. So it's always a risk, but I think it's all, good to have people on hand to be able to negotiate those people away from the action, if that makes sense.
Great, thank you.
No, that's all right. I mean, it's hard working with the public. I did a duet in the same space, and people again would sometimes walk through it or interact, or but I think as performers and as you grow, you learn how to manage that yourself, and direct the audience through what you're doing. So the beautiful site in Milton Keynes called the MK Rose, and I just want to share this with you a little bit. I've got loads I can share, but this was called For the Fallen, and it was a commemoration to World War One. And they wanted to do something in a site in Milton Keynes called the Milton Keynes Rose, and it was to accommodate multiple needs, community engagement in making dance, but also artwork. And I know I'm showing a lot of films, but I'm just going to share some of this with you, just so you can see the site and how we engaged within it. I'll open the link in 6 minutes. Here we go. So let me just share.
I think that's exactly the same process as what the dance.
Going through it physically, after sort of understanding some of the information or seeing some of the images, will just help to sort of really ingrain what this era, what this time was all about.
And almost provide an opportunity for empathy and to put the participants, to give them an experience of how that might have felt, and to give them an experience of what these people went through,
and to input into it as well. Almost ask them questions. I don't think it's going to be a process where we're going in and going, right, this is what you're going to do, follow me. But it's going to be a process of, this is what we're thinking about, what do you feel about this? So it's that two-way engagement, and and in that way it would develop and be much more personable for them.
Okay, so I'm just going to stop it there because I'm just aware of time. Really? Good say. It's continue on. How's that sound? Right, there we go. Great. So again, you can sort of, a lot of the work is community based. So we engage a large number of peoples within our work. That site's really interesting because it's done in the round, and it's got all these different pillars, obviously, that you have to avoid. People, when I show people the photos, they're like, there's not much space, but actually when you get there, the space is, there's a lot of space in between the floor, in between the pillars on the floor. Obviously it's open to the elements, so we have to be aware about that. If it rains though, because of the marble, it dries very, very quickly. But when it's wet, it's like an ice skating rink. So again, there's all these, factors when you work outside, you have to consider health and safety, all of those things. But also where people are viewing the work from. It was on a slant. So, if they're up high, what do they see that's differently to down here? What images are we creating? So we carried on making work in that site for quite a few years with Motus. So we just done an International Dance Day with Motus, also working with free runners on those pillars, and a number of community groups. So there's lots to offer within that site. The entrances, how people enter the site from the parkland that goes beyond it. So again, where you're putting your audience, do you move the audience around? On that performance, they were all just kind of in a 360, but we've done things before where we've moved it with particular actions or particular focuses of the show. I've got loads more I could share, but I'm really aware of the time. So I'm hoping that's given some insight into some of the work that we've done, but it's like this much of the work, if you know what I mean. It's tiny, because there's always new things happening all the time. But I don't know whether there's any questions or people want to ask me anything, or we've got 5-10 minutes just to have a chat. Anyone out there? Oh, everyone's very quiet.
No questions. Thank you.
Oh, no questions. Oh, well, it's lovely to see some of you, and I hope that you're well and that you found these sessions useful.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Helen. Thank you.
That's a pleasure. Sorry if there was any buffering issues or whatever, but
yeah, I think if you can send over the links to the film separately and we can send them out to all the artists to watch them, that'd probably be a good thing, because they're really informative in themselves, aren't they, those films?
Yeah. And there's quite a few that I didn't share that might just be interesting, like the Close Distance show that I was talking about. I'll send you over a clip with that, and it's just it's also the collaboration of the text within that as well, and all of those things that then lent itself to being cited, and with quite an intimate audience.
Fascinating. Yeah, there's loads to talk about, isn't there?
Yeah, well, always sites. I think working in sites is I get really excited, but then I go, the problems of this site are
always
the audience. Where do we put the cast? People get changed. How are we going to get power?
Yeah, exactly.
All of those different elements. Okay, when I made some work for the Paralympic opening ceremony. Well, I was the assistant choreographer for working with 3,000 volunteers. That was interesting. Anyway, that was a sighted show because we're in a stadium.
Yeah.
Suddenly, a worldwide audience. People aren't going to notice movement that's very small, or even down here. Everything has to be up here. So from here up. So anything down below with footwork wasn't relevant because people didn't see it. So again, it's considering those things when you're making work, what actually is going to be seen. And it's been amazing, and I'm continually learning about it as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. But nice to see you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Pleasure, and sending love to you all, and all my best wishes.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thanks, Helen.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.